final pain point of the 10 top pain points of leadership. And this week, we covered the area of empowering your team and empowerment in general. And I can testify with 45 plus years experience in leadership and consulting. That is definitely one of the things I spend a lot of time helping leaders to overcome, that particular pain point. So I know it's real. I know it exists in every organization that's out there. And deep inside of most leaders, there's a little bit of hesitation about empowering your people. In a lot of organizations I've been to, they also have the sense that you just have a hard time letting go. There's a lot of fear and empowerment. There's just a lot of fear. And so anyway, that's what we're going to be talking about this evening. It's been a journey, a very good journey, and I've already made the decision that I'm going to compile the information and add to each of the 10 pain points we covered and try to add to some more meat to the bone and compile a book along this area, the impact of interpersonal communication on your ability to overcome leadership's pain points. So this particular session, I don't know, I haven't checked down on my YouTube channel yet, but I'm pretty sure that it's open to the public right now. I sent a signal. I just made a decision. I've been doing these mostly unlisted, and that's okay. I'm not trying to gain a lot of subscribers, so I'm not worried about that. But I got the feeling that maybe what I needed to do is at least give people who subscribe and haven't quite come to the point where they want to enter a page or subscribe to the channel or to subscribe to my Substack and or subscribe to the paid portion of that. Then that it helps, I guess, to give them a taste of what's out there that you can go visit and spend time in and learn and go back and visit and grow. I found out that a lot of videos that people do, if you go back and watch them multiple times, each time you tend to come away with that one little new piece of nugget information that's going to help you a lot. So I suggest you do that you revisit videos, and particularly educational videos like this one, because I think it'll be helpful. So we are live on there. I didn't do my little welcome here. Chat message there, but you can tell me where you're from and now if you're on YouTube Live, if you journeyed over there, or if you just happen to be on YouTube Live just trolling around with nothing else to do, considering we're at war in 5 nations or 6 nations and all hell's breaking loose everywhere, or if there's nothing much you got to do but troll around and you just happen to run across this, hang in there for a little bit. You may ask a couple of questions. My guess is you're experiencing this, or you have experienced this wherever you happen to be working. So I would say this, we're going to talk about assessments. I don't know if that's going to be one or whether that might turn into 2 or 3 sessions that we're going to cover. As you're aware, we do a newsletter, so sometimes I break the topic down like I did on this one, down into 10 segments, and then I do a series on it. Sometimes I just do one session based on the one newsletter. But I'm not quite sure yet until I think about this a little more how I want to deal with assessments because um, it is something I think organizations don't have a handle on very well and they don't do much of. And when they do them, they try to do them internally, and it almost never pans out for them because you're just not going to get the honesty you get when you do a third party assessment, where you bring in a consultant or someone to help you conduct the assessment that can do it anonymously. So, we're going to talk about all of the values of assessments and what you need to kind of look for as you're doing this and how much weight you want to put on it when you decide what you're going to do, how to just use an assessment to find issues, how to use an assessment to kind of pre-plan an acquisition or a divestiture or a change of direction. A lot of things like that are important. You don't want to just announce something on cold to your organization. Oh, we're going to change businesses, or I've just been sold, and you all are going to have a great time in the next company that we sold it to. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. You can create a lot of uncertainty and a lot of headaches when you do that. So, we're going to talk about assessments. So that'll be the next round, at maybe 1, 2, or 3 sessions, something like that. As you can see, just talking through it, I came up with 2 different segments. How to use it, so that there may be a little more I have to dig into to make that decision. If there is anything that you struggle with or that you were wondering about, whether it's in the realm of leadership or just in the realm of interpersonal communication, I made some comments because there are some people out there now that are struggling with the MAGA crowd, and it's kind of like they laid the blame on MAGA. The MAGA people, so to speak. And it's like we've made a judgment that all MAGA people are bad people. They're just, not only that, but they've been termed ignorant. And there's so much I've seen that coming out of a cult environment like that after 15 years, spending it in, it was what you would call today a white Christian nationalist church that I was in for almost 15 years. And I don't, and there are still some people in that church that I care about, I like, and they are not the same brand. Now, we have had an exceptionally poisonous cult leader take something like this church environment and direct it in a way that could be harmful, but still within that group, having come out of that, and I came out before all this stuff kind of came out about Trump and all that. It was way back before 2016. But coming out of it was not easy. It left a lot of guilt because my family was in it at the time, and there was a lot to cope with, and that's a lot of stress when you're coming out of something that you thought was your basic support system, that all things revolved around that support system. You found out it wasn't what it was supposed to be. That's enough to struggle with without other people judging you and ridiculing you or trying to blame you or whatever else is on top of that. So I wrote a brief little thing about maybe you might want to consider some things before you start lambasting people in post and calling them jerks and idiots. And the other area that I got really very upset about was people who would purposely go out and I think they were probably talking to people who they had tagged as not being worldly, so to speak. In other words, they wouldn't probably have a doctorate in the science, in a science. They wouldn't be an executive in a business organization. These are your everyday common people that are, really kind of relying on these other people to guide and direct who they're going to be in their life. And they would find those people, and then they would question them and interview them with preset questions on the spot, like, answer this. And then they set that up in such a way as to appear to make the MAGA crowd look like idiots. And I just feel uncomfortable with that approach to dealing with any human being. They didn't go, the same people did not go to Democrats in the same basic status structure in the community and pose them with tough questions like that. They just did it with the MAGA crowd because that was going to bring them some ratings. Okay. Frankly, I don't know that they were interested in what these people said was wrong with this country. But I can tell you, having lived in it for 5 decades, I have consistently seen every decade more and more people frustrated with the government and less of the government being able to respond in a way that reduced that frustration. And I think that's what led up to the 2016 election of Trump. I think to Trump's people's credit, they had tagged that group of people. They saw those people, and they knew there were millions of them that they were tapped into. And so, I'm not saying Trump did the right thing. I mean, basically he lied to these people. He preyed on their hope, and that's worse than what the guy with the microphone was doing, but as far as I'm concerned. So there's plenty of this this issue of how you treat people the wrong way in the whole political structure that we've been working through. And so I wrote a little something about that, and some people went back and said, this is something I hadn't thought about it from this direction, or this is a different way of looking at it. It interests me. I'd like to learn more. So if you're one of those people, you're certainly welcome to put some stuff in my comments. You're certainly welcome to come join me, because if you think if it's important enough to get out there to talk about it, to talk about that and how it relates to how we should be thinking in general and all of that, you can contact me. I'll bring you on the air with me. If there may be 2 or 3 of you that are interested in doing that, we can all have a chat about this. Because I do know when I came out, and I'm still struggling with overcoming a lot of stuff. I still have tendencies because it was ingrained so much to automatically try something. I had to stop myself and think about that for a minute, and say, nah, that's not the right thing to do. Hold on here a second. Okay, let me have a drink of this. Oh, sorry, I shake. Hope that doesn't bother anybody to watch me. I get my liquid down me even though I shake like this, okay? So you don't have to have any concerns for me. But that's another one of those areas that I get frustrated watching YouTube people go out and sit down and they put somebody at a table like they're shaking, and then somebody comes over to help them. And they go, oh, by the way, I don't shake. I just wanted to see what you would do, and here's some money for doing the right thing. That's a shitty way to do things, folks. It's a shitty way to do things. I don't, I know what you're trying to do. I think your heart might be in the right direction. It's not the way to communicate that point, because people like me, I'm not looking for anybody to help me. And so now you may be putting in people's mind that to be conscious about going out and eating and shaking because somebody's going to come over and help you, and you're wondering whether they think they're going to get some money for it. They're actually looking around for the cameras. That's not the way to do this. It's not the way to do this. You do not ridicule people who are suffering, particularly people who are suffering from things that, I'm not ashamed of shaking. I'm not embarrassed about it. I didn't choose the damn disease. It came with the body, okay? And there's nothing, I'm trying to do everything I can do to reduce it without, destroying the rest of my body with drugs or something. But I'm not embarrassed about it, and I'm not expecting help. I will get through my meal. I always do, and I will drink comfortably. And if you can get past watching that and not pay attention to me and just pay attention to what you're doing, I'll get by just fine. But to do that frustrates me. Those kinds of things are things I think we need to talk about in the world. What's right and what's wrong. That what you're doing is trying to make money off of that, and that's not. I know you're rich and you're trying to give money away. Okay, probably the person was shaking would somebody like that who can't work, can't sign a check, or can't even sign a check comfortably. I have to scribble it. There's no way I could do anything. Every time I type on the key, I could hit 4 or 5 keys. And, so if I'm texting somebody something, there's all kinds of words that might come out of that I didn't mean to type in there. So the people who know me, they understand and they look at it and go, okay, this is what he means, and that's good. And so we get by with that, but you don't want to make fun of or poke fun at people that have diseases like that to make money or to get likes or subscribers or whatever it is. If you want to make some money at something like that, give them the money where nobody can see it, where you're not going to get any credit for it. Do it because it's the right thing to do. All right. And while we're at it, and then we'll move on to this empowering thing. Since I got on this, I was just trying to say, if you're interested in that, come with me, because I don't mind getting on the air and talking about how I got out, why I got out, the difficulty I have today even dealing with it, but being able to cope with it, and how you can help other people, how you can, if you have people in your family that were sucked into this MAGA movement and are beginning to realize, I'm beginning to see that this guy isn't what he said he was. Oh my God, that's disruptive enough. Trump should suffer all kinds of hell for preying on people's hope. That's what he does. He preys on people's hope and takes their money. And when you kind of discover that about your leader, it's really disruptive. It makes you feel ignorant to start with. What was it? Why I was so weak that I couldn't see this? But I'm telling you, that's not the case. There's a lot of issues underpinning all of that. So if that's something that somebody would like to pursue, and we can go public with that, and maybe we can help people to adjust and adapt to that, that would be great. I don't mind doing that. If it helps you, and you got that situation where you're trying to deal with somebody, a loved one, and they're antagonistic. Initially, you're going to take that cult approach that don't participate with anybody else. Everything they did is all wrong. Only the cult leader knew what to do. So when you do go out amongst people and you start asking the questions, somebody starts giving you some responses, your initial reaction is still defensive because you've been trained to do that. Unduly, we call it unduly influenced. And they use all kinds of tactics and techniques to make this process work. And it's still alive and well today in the Republican Party. That for some reason the oligarchs picked that party as their vehicle to get all of this stuff out there. And I'm not sure everybody in the and that's to say, I don't blame anybody in the Republican Party. I just say we're going to have to figure out how to help them see what has happened. Because many of those people initially were not that way. And many of them still aren't that way. And they just don't know how to get out from under a pretty massive movement with a lot of money and a lot of energy behind it, a lot of very important people behind it who really could give a damn about anybody else out there. But it's an interest. I can see how it's interesting and how it's attractive. It's not fun and it's not easy to talk about or deal with, but you can talk through it if you get with some people who can kind of help you. So now, leadership and empowering people. Talk about fear. Can I let them do that? I bet you 90% of the leaders that I met with while I was a consultant or that I was training within organizations, leaders who led me and other people, the fear that they have about relinquishing something to somebody that may not get done, or maybe they'll make a mistake and, oh my God, blow up everything. Who knows? That's really only a real sad fear if you happen to be dealing with nitroglycerin and blasting caps and stuff. Then you could possibly blow up everything. But most of the time, you don't have that kind of pressure on you. That's a reality that you create on yourself as a leader. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about. So let's turn you on over there a minute. Let me see if I can get us over here. There we go. Hey, navigating the lead, developing and empowering your team. Gosh, if we could get this point across to the vast majority of organizations out there, we would be much more efficient than those robots say we are not. So we would be much, much better at everything we did if we could just kind of overcome this issue of dealing with empowering other people. So a common pain point for many leaders is the challenge of developing and empowering employees. That's what we've just been saying here. Now, what are the perceived risks that kind of get under your skin or make you hesitant, so to speak, to empower Martha or Fred or any of these other people? So one of them is time consuming. It takes time to develop people. I think, that's one of the real interesting things I've seen over my lifetime in the 10 decades I've been living, or the 5 decades I've been working in the world and doing consulting and stuff. People have begun to expect things to happen in much shorter time spans. So it used to be we could do it out here in this time span. Now it's got to be right here in this time span. And we got to see if we can crunch it for some reason to happen even faster and better. So I realize this because I am one of those people who was still alive and doing things by writing on a piece of paper with the pencil. I had no calculator. I had no, we could have had a calculator. I just couldn't afford it as a kid. Um, and we didn't have any computers or anything like that to do anything. We were figuring everything out by hand, and it took a long time to educate people that way because they didn't have a large amount of information that we have today. They had some basics, and then they had to build on that slowly. Then computers started coming along. I told somebody the first computer I worked on was at a University of Florida, and when I went in to do my first little thing, you had to punch holes in the card with a keyboard. The keyboard would punch holes in the card. You had to sequence those cards like pages, one after the other, and keep them in order and put them together and then feed them into the machine like you do feeding your credit card into the slot to pay. You had to feed them into something like that, and that machine would take it and process it, and then it would turn all those punched holes into X's and O's and convert them into the letters, and that's what the software was doing. Then you had to go into the printer room and take mounds and mounds of large computer paper, printing off a small memo you did or something, and pull that all off there, tear it off of there, and take it back to your office, and then filter through it. Okay, that took a little bit of time. And now, and we had to train people to go do that, so that took time. And before we just get up and go in the office and sit down with Fred or Mary and say, "Hey, da 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 da," and we were doing it. Uh, it was interesting, but the computer in that school. I worked at that time. I worked in a two-story office building. The computer in that school, just to do what a few of us wanted to do in that department in school, was as big as my whole two-story office. Just a computer that was generating it. It's the same one that this is 1,000 times more powerful and has that much more energy than we had in that office. So when we were delegating things to things, we kind of had to delegate them and hope that they got done right. Now, it doesn't take as much time to go in. In fact, the big thing now is learn how to type in a statement, program a statement, prompt, I think it is. Now you can type in a prompt, and AI will just give you that answer in about maybe less than 10 seconds. Sometimes lately it's been taking a lot of time to analyze, a lot more time. Maybe it's because I'm asking it more difficult questions, but it sits there and spins and analyzes, and I don't know whether they wanted me to think. I'm sitting here thinking now, do they just want me to believe that computer really has to wait that long to figure this out, so that I don't get excited and want them all destroyed? Or surely they can do it faster than that, but. So time is an issue. This whole idea of when you delegate somebody to something, it takes time to explain what's going on. You have to take time to train the person about not just the problem, but all the aspects that go around that problem. So people would be taking time to train them, and it would frustrate them, and they just finally say, "Here, just move over and watch what I do," and then they would do it, and thinking the person watching them do it is training them to do it. Then they say, "See, they're going to do that, do the next one that way." Well, then they couldn't do the next one quite like it. And the management will go, "Man, what the hell? I just showed you how to do it." And they don't understand the communication process. the connectivity, the whole concept of how we process learning and all that kind of stuff. The leader didn't understand that. Okay, that's not something they were taught that they should know as a leader. So those are the things that were creeping in on us: time, consuming time, potential for poor decision making. The staff could make the wrong decision. If they made the wrong decision, uh, uh, well, just think about it. If you put a decimal point in the wrong way, you could, be $1 million decision or a 10-cent decision. Yeah, it's up to you where you put the decimal point. So this is the issue here. Poor decision making. Time was a problem that causes people not to want to delegate. And then there's the perceived effect of authority, often keeping leaders stuck in a cycle of micromanagement. And the problem of if they learn too much, maybe they might come up with the idea that you couldn't think of, and your boss might see that and go, "Hey, why didn't you do that?" Or, "Wow, let's go ahead and promote this guy up over to the next position I was going to promote you into." So all of that plus more, you can probably think of some more reasons. But there was just this sense of hesitation to empower people for a lot of reasons, a lot of pretty good reasons that people had that were a problem. So there wasn't really a lot of time being spent, and hasn't been a lot of time spent teaching people that what leaders are probably most responsible for is building trust between them and their employees. It is singularly the biggest, most important thing to leadership that you can master. Mastering is difficult, but requires so many different kinds of things that you have to learn to do. Communication being one of those things. That's the area I specialize in, and where I started. I realized for a long time I would go in and one of the problems might be a leader had a lot of conflict in their, a lot of conflict in their organization that didn't quite know how to deal with it in team meetings and things like that. And they just didn't. So I would go in and I would say, okay, the first thing is to identify the type of conflict. What kind of conflict are we talking about here? Because you're going to have different sources. Yeah, and they said, yeah, I know it was this and this and this. So they had courses on conflict management. They just couldn't get it done. They couldn't get the act of accomplishing it and getting to people and connecting with them to make them to see what they wanted them to do. They knew what to do, they just couldn't see it. I still have allergies here, so excuse me. So the issue became how to get them to communicate more effectively. What do you have to do to break through certain things that allow people to trust you enough to take the time to listen to you and want to hear what you have to say? And so that was one of the things I discovered behind trust. One of the biggest promoters, one of the biggest vehicles for trust building is interpersonal communication. If you don't master that, you most likely are not going to master the idea that people are going to trust you. Now, you can get it without, let me put it to you a different way. Again, I'm going to use Donald Trump. Donald Trump preyed on people's hopes. And one of the things that Donald had some training in and he did well was communication. That was his thing, so to speak. He liked interacting with people, and like Jeffrey and a bunch of other people, others besides Jeffrey, I'm sure. But his thing was touching people and kind of getting them to believe him. And he would say anything true or not, to get them to believe him. He would see that if they believed him, he could get them to do things. So he literally could lie through his teeth constantly, and people would trust him until it came back to bite him. You've heard about the stories about the contractors that used to want to work because he was building things and making things happen that way, but they would never. He would promise them things and never pay them for them. So it's not so much trust is all about communicating, but communicating is so much more than just talking, so much more than a presence. And so we talk a little bit about that and how all the components we've been talking about over these 10 sessions, how to make those happen in a way that creates true communication and true trust that can be valued and dependent upon. So trust is one of those areas that's important to cope with. So open communication is the key to trust. One of the keys to trust is by establishing a culture of open, transparent communication. You create an environment where employees feel valued and empowered. They feel valued and empowered because if you tell them something that they are expecting you would never tell them, that you would keep a secret. The story I tell, I'm not going to tell it again because you can listen to it in a couple of previous sessions back. But generally speaking, I had a company who wanted to lay people off. They were going to lay people off because they were divesting. We were in there helping them get ready to be divested. It was so many people that owned the company were family oriented. They didn't want anything to do. Everybody was getting too old, I think, and they didn't want anything else to do with it. So they wanted to divest it, but they wanted to take care of the people. But they were afraid to tell them. They were not going to tell them that they were going to sell it. They didn't want to be in front of those people, but many of those people grew up with this company 30, 40, 50 years. And here they were going to be in the street in a few months or a year. Or I think it was almost 2 years. We were looking at that project, and and myself and a couple of other high quality consultants managed to sit down and talk with the senior team and the board, and convince them that they don't want to hold us back. These are not people that are going to run out on you. They had invested too much in this company to let it. They had a sense of caring about the company itself, so they weren't going to run out. And it turned out to be a fabulous divestiture, one of the best ones I've ever worked on. And it was fairly fascinating watching what people did. And it came from this open, transparent, we're going to share everything with you. Here's what we're doing, here's what now. There's a couple of things they couldn't share because you have these blackout periods that are legally mandated, so stock markets don't go crazy and everything. But as soon as those were, and if they couldn't say anything, they told them why, exactly right. I had this legally mandated thing. But then after that, everything was just out in the open, and how can you help us? What's your idea on this? What will work? I need to know how you're feeling so we can decide how we can best deal with this. And all of that open communication and transparent communication made that go so much easier. So many more people came out better off in the long. Not everybody, but the vast majority of the company came out much, much better off than others. So this idea of open communication and transparency is important, but you've got to understand what you're doing. You've got to understand what that is about and how that happens and what's going on with it. Active listening is another very misunderstood scenario where people get sent to these courses on active listening all the time. They come back and they're no better at it than before they went off to the course. There is a lot to active listening that is not taught and most active listening or listening courses that you go to. Things that are deeper than just regurgitating what somebody said so they supposedly can hear that you were listening to them. And that's not what makes them feel you're listening to them. There is a sense that goes along with that, and you need to know what that sense is. And I mean physical sense and mental sense. And you have to understand what's driving that, how it happens, and what's engaged with that, and what it is about your brain and you and each person interacting with the other. What's possible about what's going on there. You need to understand all that to really understand, and then have at your fingertips what you need to do to actively listen to somebody, intentionally actively listen to somebody. You need to know that. Okay? And if you don't take the time to learn it correctly from people who know what the hell they're talking about, then you're not truly active listening. In fact, you can come across as being a facade, a fake at it. And that's not very good either. So, but it is one of these two tools right here. Phenomenal at being able to allow you the comfort of being able to empower your people to do something. Then there's the why factor, effectively articulating the organization's mission and the why behind the decision. That's what we were doing in that divestiture program. We were explaining the why behind it. And they were actually getting it because we were given all of the information we had on it. And we said, the better this company is when we sell it, the better we're going to be able to treat you guys. And my God, they got behind it, like ferociously got behind it then. It was like, hey, the reason these guys are in here is to help us look better. And so when we do sell to the right people, and we are getting a better price for that. That then means we can present something to you. And they did it. They weren't like some people I know out there in the business world. They tell you that, but you never see it. These people saw the benefit from that because their packages were much better than I had seen most companies do. And on top of that, they were helping them find jobs. They were saying, hey, look, you can take some time off to go do your interview over here at our competitor. Because if you get hired, just make sure they understand it's this date that you're leaving. That to get certain packages, you have to tell them that. And we have to protect ourselves that way. But go ahead and tell them. Go ahead. I'll give you an hour or two. We'll make it work. And that was going on all over the place. So you explain why, and when you're empowering somebody, that's kind of what you want to do. You want to create a sense of this is why it's happening. This is why we do it this way. This is why it works. And I'm telling you, I've seen it multiple times. I've seen employees go, I understand the why, but have you thought about this? And oh my God, they go, what? Oh, man. And then there was the next generation way of doing it and saving all kinds of money and increasing all kinds of production and quality and everything that went with it. Out of that just one interaction that happened to happen over lunch, that one happened in a manufacturing plant. And just like, what? It was amazing. As I listened to the guy, I was watching a song or a movie about a band, and one of the things was going on, and somebody started playing something. Oh, I know, it was a friend I went to high school with. Don Felder wrote the music for the Eagles, and he was just playing around with it, I guess. And when Don Felder and some other folks, Glenn Fry, and they go, what are you playing? And he goes, well, that's just something I did, when I was sitting at the beach back in California. And they go, let's do something with that. And they did it, and that was Hotel California, folks. open communication, actively listening and paying attention to what's happening and hearing it correctly, and getting the input you needed and saying, let's go to work on that. And bam, out comes that. So there is a real benefit to empowerment that most leaders are not aware of yet, and are very hesitant to let happen. But when it happens, it can be pretty powerful for everybody. It can also make a few bad mistakes along the way, but you can overcome everything and get back into it. So those are a few things. These are the three things I think you could do from a communication perspective. Open communication, actively listen, open and transparent, by the way. Actively listening, but I mean learn, find out what that means. Pay attention to some of the stuff I've written and I've done here lately. Get a feel for what that is. I even have some videos all over the place on my channel on this. Know what that means. There's one in there particularly that's relative to neuroscience in this, so pay attention to that because that one really explains it. And get to know that and try it out and play with it. All the books I write have workbooks that make you go out and observe, take notes, journal it, play with it, try it, see what worked, see what didn't, why it worked, why it didn't, write it down, journal it, discuss it, and then and you get better at it each time you do that. But it requires some work. It requires education, and it requires practice, like anything you do that you want to become excellent at. So we often believe communication is solely about what we say, but it's unspoken language. It's the nonverbal language that is the most critical language that you need to learn to understand. We don't think we need to. I tell people all the time, I ask the question, have you ever had any courses or education that would help you understand that if I said to you the meaning of the message is in the mind of the receiver, what does that say to you? Have you had any kind of education to help you discern what I would mean by that? I don't know. Nothing like that ever. And we don't teach it in high school. We don't teach it in college unless you major in it. You know, if you take a science major, business major, math major, even foreign language major, you don't really get a deep, enhanced series of courses taught on interpersonal communication to help you connect with other people effectively. It's just not offered. It's not offered. It's what I discovered over my 5 years. One of the two things that we have missed in leadership development for 5 decades. We have not taught leaders how to effectively communicate interpersonally. We've hit and missed and put it in pieces like active listening course or a feedback course, or actually those two should be combined. Just hit and miss on topics, but nobody's integrated it into interpersonal communication. Interpersonal is the emotional intelligence side of it. Everything that does to do with feelings and who you are and where you're coming from and how to manage and evaluate and deal with that, as well as know that about other people, interpersonal. Communication is a closed system, like your body is a closed system, that is looping on a continual basis, all kinds of feedback and all kinds of information that help you to operate in life, just like your body operates in life. It's going on. You don't question what your lungs and heart, you don't go in there and analyze. I mean, doctors do, but you don't. But the more you would know about that, the more healthier you can become by paying attention to those items and regulating them so that they are managed appropriately. But you would have to learn about them. You'd have to take the time to understand, what is the liver process? Oh, my God, all these toxins. It deals with fat and all this stuff that's supposedly bad for me. So what do I need to do to make my liver healthy? I didn't even realize the liver could regenerate itself on a regular basis if I just did this, if I ate this way. Now, the problem is you have a whole bunch of people out here in the capitalistic world who's decided that they need to make money off of that and is selling you a bunch of stuff out here. And the reason they can do that is you really haven't taken the time to learn what is real and facts. And so you have a bunch of people trying to sell you stuff that doesn't work. So those are the things that go on in communication that get in the way of leaders allowing people to take control of things and to handle it. But you have to have that connection to feel that comfort to be able to allow that to go. And the employee has to trust you enough to want to hear what you have to say. I tell people, when you're leading, when your employee grants you the authority to lead them. They grant you that. They want you to lead them. They tell you to lead them. That's when you know you've hit the leader status. So what are the strategies? You delegate with authority. Don't just assign tasks. You don't want to be saying to somebody to do something that's really urgent and go, well, here's what I'd like you to think about. This is kind of important, and I'd like you to do it fairly quickly because if it don't, the building could collapse, but we could get it fixed, but it would collapse. And I want you to work on figuring out this part of it. But if, I don't want you to be burned out on it. Now, if it's important, hell yes, I need you burn out for a while and get this problem solved for me, and I'm trusting you can do it. Here's what I need to have it look like. Tell me what you need to get it done. I'll get that for you. Can you get it done? Yeah, I can do it. Sure. Okay, great. Just let me know what I can do to help. Bang, get out of here and let them do it. That's the kind of empowerment that people need. They need that kind of, that's when you have trust, when you value your person and you have trust. That's the kind of behavior you're getting out of folks. Some of them may even come up and tell you, we need to do this right away. And you didn't even know it because they have that trust in you. They know they can tell you that things are screwed up here and this is on your watch and things are screwed up, but we can fix it, okay? We need to go get it. Here's what I need. Pretty interesting. Foster autonomy. Encourage the idea of doing it, taking on the responsibility. Yeah, you're going to make mistakes. We all do. It's okay. You may make some bad ones. We'll survive them. We have to take consequences for our decisions we make, but it's not the end of the world. We can still get by them together. This is the autonomy of and an employee. Nothing makes an employee feel more valued than providing them autonomy. Nothing pisses them off more than to tell them you're going to give them autonomy without them understanding why, and then not paying them to do what you're asking them to do. That's why flattening organizations didn't work in 1990, and it's not going to work now. You can't. I saw that happen in 1990. Everybody's going, you're going to love this. We're going to give you so much more responsibility, and you can make your own decisions on this and everything. And they're going, well, how much money? More money? Are we going to make it? Oh, no, you got this wrong. We're taking out middle management here so we can save money. We can't afford to pay to do this. What? It was amazing. I wish you could be in 1990s to see that whole thing go flat. Provide actionable feedback. feedback is an interesting story that other people often get a hold of, and they get taught about how to get feedback and everything. But a lot of times they may not get told, okay, it needs to be scheduled. And it needs to be scheduled in a sequential way that both you and the party you're doing the feedback with are okay with it happening, and that is comfortable for us, and that we have the right environment, and all of those things that go along with feedback. We tend to leave what we call the nonverbal aspects out of that. It has to do with chronemics, which is when and you're going to do it, the timing. It has to do with proxemics. Are we going to do it here? Are we going to do it at your office? Are we going to do it over here in the break room? Or where is it? Where is the best place for this to happen to make it the best possible outcome? So a lot of things like that are just left out of the instruction. They're also left out of the activity of doing it because of that. And a lot of times people make those mistakes. So again, the importance, feedback is critical to your success as a boss. If you're not getting the upward flow of communication in an organization as honestly as you're willing to push it down, you're in deep trouble as a company. It'll eventually sink you. It'll eventually sink you. It's like having your blood flow cut off halfway up the body. So, provide actionable feedback is really important. And then mentorship over management. That's where it's an act of showing a genuine interest in your employees' career goals. And so they have to see that what you're providing them is part of what you do and or other people above you do, that says that you need to learn these things, and we're going to let you learn them in this environment. It's a little safer than if you were sitting in my chair. And so that's, and we're gonna that way you can ask all the questions. I will pass some of these kinds of projects on to you that I'm responsible for, and let you do them. I'm not going to tell you how to do them. I'm simply going to tell you what I need in the end, and you tell me how we need to get it done. And you may come up with a better idea than I have at it. So, or you may say, I'm not quite sure I know what I'm doing. Help me out here. In which case, I get to mentor you a little bit and guide you and direct you. But at the end, you'll be able to do it at least as well as I can do it, if not better, down the road. That's something that's been a tried and true and tested since the years in Europe and other places where they were doing apprenticeships for years and years and years before they would turn you loose on the job. So we're almost done here. Pretty much taking up the hour. I want you to know that leadership is the linchpin. It's the link that connects everything that goes on in the organization from the top to the bottom. That organization is a filter of various networks and various communication processes, as well as things like procedures and guidelines and manuals and things like that. All of these things are tools that connect the organization as a whole towards common goals. And it's up to leadership to have the trust and of their employees, and it's to instill in the employee the sense that you value them, that they are truly valued, and that you have the open and transparent communication. You know how to conduct the discussions. You know how to actually effectively apply interpersonal communication consistently and regularly with your employees, so that you get that trust and that sense that they get that sense they're valued. You get that trust And together, you can begin to do the things you need to do. Now, the biggest dilemma that we have to still work through today is when somebody assigns a marketing manager the role of marketing director, or, well, let's say they assign a sale, let's take it down a little notch. They assign a salesperson who is their top salesperson the position of marketing manager. And they don't spend a lot of time on leadership, but they spend a lot of time telling them what they expect out of them as from a marketing perspective. What you've done is you've taken somebody who does the marketing work and placed them into leadership, which is designed not to do the marketing work. It's designed to organize and help organize and plan the activities of all the people who do the marketing work. And to do that, they need to have the leadership skills to connect with them effectively. Their job is not to do what they did down there. But we somehow managed to heap upon them, in America at least, 40% of the time marketing work, which means they're only a leader 60% of the time. If we're lucky, they probably have other things that get in their way. They're probably only leading less than 50% of the time. And then we wonder why people are frustrated with that whole idea about leadership, why are managers really needed? Yes, they are. Yes, leadership is needed. What is more needed is for executives and boards to understand how to do that and to quit using what they grew up with as the measuring stick. It isn't working. It hasn't worked for 5 decades I've been at it. Well, that's not true. It has worked when we changed it, but what I'm trying to say is we've been working on it for 5 decades because we haven't finished. The vast majority of people don't want to change it. They just want to keep doing what they're doing. We need the paradigm shift. We need the paradigm shift because we need to change how we're behaving. And so then one day I will do my speech on why the United States government needs a board of directors. They're the only, I don't want them to operate like a company, like a business, because we're not a business, we're a government. But we don't have that board of directors that oversees that organization, that they don't necessarily, I think there's rules and regulations about boards that prohibit them from, gaining a great deal of money from them and those kinds of things. That their job is to ensure things go right with that board or with that company. And we don't have that in the United States of America right now. That's what's going on. There isn't a board of directors to come in and bring in Donald Trump and his people. Well, don't have to bring in Congress because they report to the people. They're getting their ass chewed out every time they go home. The executives don't have anybody they have to report to. The buck stops with the president. And he doesn't have to report what he does to anybody. Therefore, how can anybody do anything? There are no consequences. We need a board. And I'm thinking like all the past presidents and all the living past presidents and all the living vice presidents are on this board. You'd get a pretty good mixture of Democrats and Republicans, although that shouldn't even be an issue. It should be about the people and what we're doing. But you'd have that board and they could come in and for the right reasons, just like a company can come in, a board can come into a CEO who started this company with their money and say, get out. If it's public, get out. You're not the one to run this. Happened with Uber. Happened with a lot of companies. Okay? So we don't have that. It'd be nice if somebody would ask me to come in and take a look at what we might do to improve the government. Nobody's asking that question. Nobody's asking the question, do we need to change how we're running the government? Yes. Yes, we need a board of directors. We need a board of directors that oversee and ensure that the value and that if somebody goes up to Congress and says, I don't care what the people think, we're not going to do that, and you can't do anything to stop me. Yes, I can. The board can come in and tell you you're fired, and we can put in a new president that will adhere to the rules of the game, the balance of power. It tells me that you still need that person at the top, that group of people at the top, the board, or the person, the chairman of the board, who has the values, the ethics, the morals, the purpose, the original purpose to continually drive why we exist. You need that kind of group of people and that kind of power still at the top of the organization. It's rests in the quality of the people you put at the top. But that person that's in there could come in and just take out the president, take out the whole damn cabinet, and put people in there who are going to run it like it's supposed to be run, who would not say to the judiciary, oh, I'm giving you the finger because, I don't care. You can't do anything. I'm giving it to you because I can. And you can't do anything about it. That's what's got everybody in a stinking uproar. Put a board over them and then somebody can do something about it. Could the board get screwed up? Yeah, I guess, but make sure you pick the right people for sure. I look at them, I'm going, let's see, who would that be? That'd be Bill Clinton, George Bush, Barack Obama. Let's take vice presidents would be Biden. Biden was the president too, so that he'd served two roles there. But Biden, you could look at, I can't remember the name of the vice president of Trump. That's how bad things were. But there was a guy, he has a different perspective, but there's a guy that did the right thing, at the time when he was threatened with his life. I like him on the board. I'd like, I don't know if there's any vice presidents alive. I have to think back. Cheney's not alive, but that would be a pretty good board right there. And they could say yes or no, take this person out or take this group of people out. And they would be overseeing the executive branch because that is the leadership branch. The people oversee Congress. And what we need to do is educate the people about how to manage their group, which is the Congress. And the justices are like the consigliores, they come in and they're not here to take people in or out. They're simply say you're doing the right thing or you're not doing the right thing. And that, there's ways to ensure that happens correctly. But there you go. That's my latest adventure about if I had to go up, one of the things there's a few things I would do. One of them is I would say, we got to create a board. So let's figure out who's going to decide who the board is. Then I'm going to do another thing. I'm going to create an assessment that is going online that every single American can answer, and that assessment is going to be, what is it? What do we mean by parts of the Constitution? So if I say to you in the preamble of the Constitution, and in the Constitution itself, that the government is responsible for the general welfare of the people. Okay, people, I'm going to come out and talk to bunches of you, thousands, millions of you. Millions of you can send stuff in. What the hell do you think your general welfare means? Just write me in, tell me what. Hey, you can answer that in the comment section. What the hell does the general welfare of the population mean to you? Just write down as many things, one words, examples you can think of. We can bring all that back, consolidate it into an assessment, and this would be better than doing a population assessment. We could still do that, but once a year or once every 2 years, however we decide we want to do it. And I'd recommend companies do this all the time. Let's assess the culture. Let's assess how well we are living against what the people told you the general welfare is. Because when they tell me, what do you mean by general welfare? I want concrete, observable things that I can go out and see that they are doing for you that makes your life better, that takes care of your general welfare. What are those things? You're living in a home. You have a roof over your head. You don't have to pay for anything if you get sick. You can go into any place and get a free meal if you can't afford it. And the prices on things are going down, not up. Going down would indicate we're making progress in the world because more people are producing more people are processing it more efficiently. Prices should be going down, not up. So there are just a few examples. I mean, I wouldn't have to have probably thousands of examples, but we could probably hit on 10 of them that everybody in this whole country would be much better off if they listed them and define. I know when this happens to me, it's okay. I know. Now, who can do that? Who wants to go up and you, the Congress, you guys have to write in what we want to have happen. You, the president, have to make sure it happens efficiently and effectively within the budget. That's your job. It's not to create the country. You're not the most powerful man in the world. I never quite figured out, how in the hell can somebody who's just responsible for running things be the most powerful man in the world? You would think the most powerful man in the world would be all the people in this country who create what you have to manage. That's the most powerful man in the world. Not the president, not the cabinet, not the Supreme Court justice, the chief Supreme Court justice. He shouldn't be the most powerful man in the world. He shouldn't have their job are just to make things happen. How they become the most powerful man in the world, in any country. The most powerful representation, I'll just call it this way, the most powerful representation in the world are the people. They put that Congress into place. And Congress's job is not to execute that, but it is to know what to execute from the people. So they have to build the trust and the confidence. They have to empower the people to tell us what we need. There you go. That's how I tied it back. I managed to do it in 15 minutes. Okay, I'm getting out of your hair. You have a good day.